Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, we are from the third groups. We would like to present about Renaissance period. Okay, I am Ahmad Tarudin as the first speakers. I would like to present about Elizabethan's literacy periods. Elizabethan's era is the history of English periods associated with the reign of Queen Elizabeth 15 and 50 until 1603. The Elizabethan era, which is generally considered one of the golden age in English literature, was a great boom in literature during which such the writer as Sir Philip Sidney, Edmund Spenser, Roger Ascham, Francis Bacon, Richard Hooker, Christopher Marlowe, and William Shakespeare followed. The period distinguished English play with Shakespeare composed his immortal dramas. It was at this time the city comedy genre develops. Theater and poetry were the dominant forms of literature during the period. The characteristics of Elizabethan's period. The first, popularity of poetry. The second, development of drama. The third, the new romanticism. The next, period of independence. The next, the peace and the prosperity. And the next, the discoveries and exploration. And the last, religious tolerance.
Okay, I'm Hikmatul Sharifah and now I will continue the material, and here I will explain about poetry. In the later of 16th century, English poetry was characterized by elaboration of language and extensive allusion to classical myth. And here the most important poets of this era include Edmund Spenser and Sir Philip Sidney. Edmund Spenser was one of the most important poets of this period, and he is the author of the Faerie Queene, an epic poem and fantastical allegory celebrating the Tudor dynasty and Elizabeth. And the next is Sir Philip Sidney. Sir Philip Sidney was an English poet, courtier, and soldier, and is remembered as one of the most prominent figures of the Elizabethan age. And his works include Astrophel and Stella, the Defense of Poetry, and the Countess of Pembroke's Arcadia. Okay, and the next is prose. The most important Elizabethan prose writers were Roger Ascham, John Lyly, and Thomas Nashe. And the pioneer of Elizabethan prose was Roger Ascham. His two chief works were Tocqueville and the Schoolmaster. And Lyly here is an English writer, poet, dramatist, playwright, and politician, and best known for his books are Oedipus, The Anatomy of Wit, and Oedipus and His England. And the last is Thomas Nashe. Nashe is considered the greatest of the English Elizabethan pamphleteers. He was a playwright, poet, and satirist who is best known for his novel The Unfortunate Traveler. This is the prose, and the next is about drama. The Elizabethan age was one of the most productive age for literature. especially for drama. And drama had become voice and choice of people. Theaters had become the voice and choice of attraction. It was the most popular form of literature in that age. And there are some kind of drama. The first is genius dramatists. There are Shakespeare, Ben Jonson, Marlowe, and John Webster. And then great tragedies, Othello, and then Hamlet, Macbeth, and King Lear. King Lear. And the last is classical comedies. Here As You Like It, and then Fall by Johnson. And the last is about role of Elizabeth Theatre in development of drama. The Elizabethan theater was booming business. People loved the theater. The Elizabethan plays and theaters were as popular as the movies and cinemas of the early 20th century. In the Elizabethan, the theater was the focal point of the age. The Elizabethan theater was the voice and choice of the people. Plays were being performed as earlier. It was not anything to get entertainment. In the days of Elizabeth, there were two theaters, such as the Red Lion and then the Theater, in which most of the plays were performed. Okay, that's all from me, and the next will be explained from the next.
Renaissance Jacobin 1603 until 1625. The great Queen Elizabeth died in 1603 after a glorious reign. She was succeeded by James I, distantly related to her. The reign of James I, in Latin called Jacobus, following the Elizabethan age, is popularly known as the Jacobin age. The Jacobin period kept up the high literary tradition of its immediate predecessor. Two material elements, however, need to be noted here. The period of James I is meant by the term Jacobin, but factually, in the first place, two age Elizabethan and Jacobin are found to overlap and mingle up in the matter of literature. In the second place, the literature of the Jacobin period transcends the past that followed Charles I's rules and the Civil War, followed by the establishment of the Puritan parliamentary authority till the restoration of the monarchy in 1660. Jacobin literature was yet fresh and lively with Elizabethan's inspiration. In the realm of drama, Shakespeare had several world contemporaries and successors, pursuing artistically their craft. Of course, there was a decline in the dramatic sphere, but the decline was only in comparison with Shakespeare's unique dramatic creations. Continuity in literature was marked. Talks of potential change was evident, coming perhaps slowly but firmly. A new literary word for England was about to dawn. Finally, the Civil War and the recourse of the Puritans' rule seemed to cut off English literature from its great tradition, from the traditional vitality and variety of English literature. But it was a gloom before a spectacle to flash with the restoration of the monarchy. A few years after, English literature has continued to be fresh and alive.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Tinda Kusumariana and I will continue the presentation about Jacobin. The Jacobin era succeeds the Elizabeth era and precedes the Caroline era. The term Jacobin is often used for the distinctive styles of Jacobin architecture and then visual arts, decorative arts, and literature which characterize that period. And then next, characteristics of Jacobin literatures. The role of Ben Jonson is also regarded as significant in literature as he invented the subgenre of the masque. His popular works include plays like Volpone, The Alchemist, Bartholomew Fair, and Epicon. And then, other eminent dramatists of this time were Francis Beaumont and John Fletcher. They were famous for writing a popular comedy titled The Knight of the Burning Pestle. Revenge play, another aspect of the Jacobin literature, was made popular by John Webster, John Ford, and Thomas Middleton and Thomas Kidd. King James Bible was one of the important works undertaken during this period. And then Jacobin literature. Shakespeare was also a very popular poet of this time. Metaphysical poets like John Donne and George Herbert were among the eminent figures in the field of poetry. George Chapman was more popularly known for his translation of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey into English verse. John Keats was influenced by this translation. Ben Jonson was another popular poet during the Jacobin period. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. How's life today? Hopefully you are in good condition and happy situation, because this era is pandemic era. We have to keep our healthy and our safety. Beware of the coronavirus. Okay, now I'm here. I'm Ahmad Aunila from PBI5C. Will present about late Renaissance. Late Renaissance, also known as Mannerism, is a style in European art that emerged in the latter years of the Italian High Renaissance around 50-20, spreading by about 50-30 and lasting until about the end of the 16th century in Italy. When the Baroque style largely replaced it, Northern Mannerism continued into the early 17th century. And the style of High Renaissance art, it emphasized proportion, balance, and ideal beauty. Mannerism exaggerates such qualities, often resulting in compositions that are asymmetrical or unnaturally elegant. And then the word Mannerism derives from the Italian maniera, meaning style or manner, like the English word style. Maniera can either indicate a specific type of style, a beautiful style, an abrasive style, or indicate an obsolete that needs no qualification. Someone has style. The label mannerism was used during the 16th century to comment on social behavior and to convey a refined virtuoso quality or to signify a certain technique. However, for later writers such as the 17th century, Jean-Pierre Pellery, a maniera was a derogatory term for the perceived decline of art after Raphael, especially in the 1513s and 1540s. From the late 19th century on, art historians have commonly used the term to describe art that follows Renaissance Classicism and precedes the Baroque. Origin and development. By the end of the High Renaissance, young artists experienced a crisis. It seemed that everything that could be achieved was already achieved. No more difficulties, technical or otherwise, remained to be solved. And the origins and role models. This period has been described as natural extension of the art of Andrea del Sarto, Michelangelo, and Raphael. Michelangelo developed his own style at an early age, a deeply original one which was greatly admired at first, then often copied and imitated by other artists of the era. One of the qualities most admired by his contemporaries was his terribility, a sense of awesome grandeur, and subsequent artists attempt to imitate it. And then the latter Michelangelo was one of the great role models of mannerisms. Young artists broke into his house and sold drawings for him. In his book Lives of the Most Eminent Painters, Sculptors, and Architects, Giorgio Vasari noted that Michelangelo said once, "Those who are followers can never pass by whom they follow." And then the competitive spirit. The competitive spirit was cultivated by patrons who encouraged sponsored artists to emphasize virtuosic technique and to compete with one another for commissions. And then early mannerism. The early Mannerists in Florence, especially the students of Andrea del Sarto, such as Jacopo da Pontormo and Rosso Fiorentino, who are notable for elongated forms, precariously balanced poses, a collapsed perspective, irrational settings, and theatrical lighting. Parmigianino, a student of Correggio, and Giulio Romano, Raphael's head assistants, were moving in similarly styled aesthetic direction in Rome. These artists had matured under the influence of the high Renaissance, and their style has been characterized as a reaction to or exaggerated extension of it. And the last is High Maniera. The second period of Mannerism is commonly differentiated from the earlier so-called anti-classical phase. Subsequent Mannerists stress intellectual conceit and artistic virtuosity, features that have led later critics to accuse them of working in an unnatural and affected manner or maniera. Maniera artists looked to their older contemporary Michelangelo as their principal model. There was an art imitating art, rather than an art imitating nature. Art historian Sidney Joseph Friedberg argues that the intellectualizing aspect of Manura art involves uh, ex- expecting its audience to notice and appreciate this visual reference, a familiar figure and an unfamiliar setting and close between unseen but felt quotation marks. That's all my explanation. I apologize to you all if I have any mistakes in pronunciation. And if you want to ask me, just ask uh, through WhatsApp groups. Okay, thank you.
Spread of Mannerism. The cities Rome, Florence, and Mantua were Mannerist centered in Italy. Painting pursued a different course, represented by Titian in his long career. A number of the earliest Mannerist artists who had been working in Rome during 1015 and 20 fled the city after the sack of Rome in 1015 and 27 as they spread out across the continent in search of employment. Their style was disseminated throughout Italy and Northern Europe. The result was the first international artistic style since the Gothic. Other parts of Northern Europe did not have the advantage of such direct contact with Italian artists, but the Mannerist style made its presence felt through prints and illustrated books. European ruled, among other purchased Italian works, while Northern European artists continued to travel to Italy, helping to spread of Mannerist style. Individual Italian artists working in the north gave birth a movement known as the Northern Mannerism. France, one of France, for example, was presented with Bonzino's Venus, Cupid, Folly, and Time. The style waned in Italy after 1015 and 18 as a new generation of artists, including the Carracci brothers, Caravaggio and Cigoli, revived naturalism. Outside of Italy, however, Mannerism continued into the 17th century. In France, where Rousseau traveled to work for the court at Fontainebleau, it is known as Henry II style and had a particular impact on architecture. Other important continental centers of Northern Mannerism include the court of Rudolf II in Prague, as well as Haarlem and Antwerp. Mannerism as a stylistic category is less frequently applied to English visual and decorative arts, where native labels such as Elizabethan and Jacobean are more commonly applied. 17th century artisan mannerism is one exception applied to architecture that relies on pattern books rather than on existing precedent in continental European. Of particular note is the Flemish influence at Fontainebleau that combined the eroticism of the French style with an early version of the Venice tradition that would dominate 17th century Dutch and Flemish painting. Prevalent at this time was the Picture Figure, a description of painters from the north who entered the workshop in France and Italy to create a truly international style. Sculpture. As in painting, early Italian Mannerist sculpture was very largely an attempt to find an original style that would top the achievement of the High Renaissance, which in sculpture essentially meant Michelangelo, and much of the struggle to achieve this was played out in commission to fill other places in the Piazza della Signoria in Florence, next to Michelangelo's David. Pietro Bandinelli took over the project of Hercules and Casus from the master himself, but it was little more popular than it is now and maliciously compared by Benvenuto Cellini to a sketch of Milan. Through it had a long-lasting effect in apparently introducing relief panel in the pedestal of statue. Like other works of his and other Mannerists, it removed far more of the original book than Michelangelo would have done. Cellini puns Perseus with the head of Medusa is certainly a masterpiece, designed with angels of view, another Marius characteristic and artificially stylish in comparison with the Davids of Michelangelo and Donatello. Originally a goldsmith, his famous gold and enamel cellar was his first sculpture and saw his talent at its best. Early theorists. Giorgio Vasari. Giorgio Vasari's opinion about the art of painting emerged in the praise he bestowed on fellow artists in his multi-volume Lives of the Artists. He believed that excellence in painting demanded refinement, richness of invention, expressed through virtuoso technique. and with and study that appeared in the finished work, all criteria that implies the artist's intellect and the patron's sensibility. The artist was no longer just a trained member of a local guild of stay look. No, he took his place at court alongside scholars, poets, and humanities in a climate that fostered an appreciation for elegance and complexity. Gianpaolo Lomazzo. Another literary figure from the period is Gianpaolo Lomazzo. Produced two works, one practical and one metaphysical, that help define the Mannerist artist's self-conscious relation to his art. His Trato dell'arte, della pittura, cultura et architettura is in part a guide to contemporary concept of decorum, which the Renaissance inherited in part of antiquity, but Merism elaborated upon. Lomazzo's systematic codification of aesthetic which typifies the more formalized and academic approach typically of the later 17th century, emphasizes a consonance between the function of interior and the kinds of painted and sculptured decor that would be suitable.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad Ali. I come from second group. We present about characteristic of artwork created during the Mannerist period. Below is a list of many specific characteristics that Mannerist artists should employ in their artwork. The first is elongation of figures. Often Mannerist work featured the elongation of the human figure. Occasionally, this contributes to the bizarre imagery of some Mannerist art. The second is distortion of perspective. In paintings, the distortion of perspective explored the ideas for creating a perfect space. The third is black background. Mannerist artists often utilize flat black background to present a full contrast of contours in order to create dramatic scenes and also to creating sense of fantasy within the subject matter. The fourth is use of darkness and light. Many Mannerists were interested in capturing the essence of the night sky through the use of intentional illumination, often creating a sense of fanatical scenes. The fifth, sculptural forms. Mannerism was greatly influenced by sculpture, which gained popularity in the 16th century, and many more characteristics like clarity of line, composition and space, Mannerist movement, painted frames, atmospheric effects, and Mannerist color. Here are the examples of Mannerist artists and their works. The first is Joachim Botwell, the second is Agnolo Bronzino, third is Jacopo Tintoretto, the fourth is Jacopo Pontormo, and the last is El Greco. And here Mannerist architecture. Mannerist architecture was characterized by visual trickery and unexpected elements that challenged the Renaissance norms. Here are a few examples of Mannerist architecture. The first is Palazzo Te in Mantova. The second is Saint John Co Cathedral in Valletta, Malta. The third is Palazzo Massimo alle Colonne in Rome, Italia. And the fourth is Cathedral Basilica of Salvador, Brazil. Mannerism in literature and music. In English literature, mannerism is commonly identified with the qualities of the metaphysical poets, of whom the most famous is John Donne. The witty sally of a Baroque writer, John Dryden, against the verse of Donne in the previous generation affords a concise contrast between Baroque and Mannerist aims in the arts. He affects the metaphysic not only in his satires but in his amorous verses, where nature only shows pain and perplexes the minds of the fair sex with nice speculation of philosophy, when he should engage their hearts and entertain them with the softnesses of love. The rich musical possibilities in the poetry of the late 16th and early 17th centuries provided an attractive basis for the madrigal, which quickly rose to prominence as the preeminent musical form in Italian musical culture. The word mannerism has also been used to describe the style of highly florid and contrapuntally complex polyphonic music made in France in the late 14th century. This period is now usually referred to as the Ars Subtilior. Okay, thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.